Welcome, students. We are looking at how we could try and design a fishing lure. I've never printed one of these, so we're trying this out. Hopefully it works, and you can try this out. We are thinking a fishing lure, something similar to this. If you want to change the design, it's really up to you. You can put a little bill thing on the front, so it kind of gives it a little bit more motion in the water. But we're doing something like this for the fishing lure. And if we look at this one here, what's going on is we have two parts and we kind of mirror these. And when I hide one of them, you can see that piece kind of has these pegs sticking out. Don't worry about all the other stuff yet. But those pegs that are sticking out kind of snap into the other one that also has some holes there, kind of like a Lego piece. So we're going to have these two pieces coming together. And so we're going to design this piece first. And you'll see some other things going on here. We are going to 3D print this. So when we 3D print this, it's made out of plastic and it's pretty hollow. So I was thinking that you might need to add some weights to this. So we just gave it some extra space, hollow space in here, so that if you wanted, you can go put some weights in there, make it a little heavier or whatever you got to do afterwards. And then the loops where you actually connect the hooks here, those, we can't really print those very well because they'll be pretty easy to break off. So what we have going on here is around the two pegs that are going to hold the two pieces together, we gave a little bit of an indent there. So what you can do is wrap some wire around that peg and then make the wire kind of stick out this hole and make a little loop that later you can put the hook on too. And from there, you could paint this and do whatever you want, make it look super awesome. And the placement of these holes is really up to you. And the whole shape is really up to you. So let's jump ahead and start designing this thing. I'm going to do one just like you saw there. So I'm going to start off with a nice kind of curve on the back. That's one spline. I'm going to give it kind of some curve on the bottom. I don't know. I'm not much of a fisherman, so I'm kind of making things up as I go here. This is probably not a very good design. Feel free to look up some designs and make something that you like a little better. That looks a little chubby to me, so I'm going to bring that in a little bit. That's pretty good, right? Maybe you want to adjust it some more. Maybe you want to give it that little bill on the front. It's really up to you. But the important thing here is we give this dimensions here. 4.5 inches here. 4.8 inches is probably a little big. Probably like 1.5 is probably a good size for most fishing lures, I would kind of guess. And so we're going to draw that, and I'm going to give it two circles in here that are going to be kind of the Lego pieces. Probably getting a little tight back there, so we're going to put the other one maybe about here. I'm going to set these both to be equal so that they're the same size. And that's going to be nice because now when I dimension one of them and make that, let's make that 1/8 of an inch, 0.125, or better yet, let's write that as a fraction. It's your fractions once in a while. Now these are both the same size, which is pretty nice. And if you need to adjust these, remember we're going to put a little groove around this so you can't have it too close to the edge there. And now I'm also going to draw kind of some sort of hollow shape here. I don't want to get too close to those circles, but something that I could probably add some weights to later if I needed to. And you know what? That's looking pretty funky. So I'm going to bring that and adjust that. And just, this is really just hollowing out some space. Keep it away from the edges there because we're going to be rounding off these edges. And that might cause some problems there. But anything like that's going to be probably good to add some weight later if you need to. You might not, who knows. So let's say that's pretty good for now. We might need to come back there and adjust some more things. So that's pretty good. Let's extrude this. Again, all these measurements I'm kind of making up on the fly. I'm not the big fisherman, so you might have to find a lure you like. Find a good size for it. Remember, this is only half the thickness, right? Because we're going to make a separate mirror image of this. So if you want the total thickness to be 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch would be half of that, right? We're going to say okay there. And now we got half of the lure going on. I'm going to bring that sketch back. I know I'm going fast, so feel free to pause this video and rewatch some things there. And now I'm going to come back and I'm going to extrude this. I'm going to cut a hole here for this piece. So I'm going to say remove. Let's pull this back here. This whole thing was oops. This whole thing was 0.25, a quarter of an inch thick. Maybe I'll do 0.15. I don't know. I'm kind of estimating some things here. Obviously, I don't want it to be too deep. Again, we're going to round off these corners. So if we make it too deep, we don't want holes going all the way through. And that looks pretty good. And let's also extrude these two kind of pieces that are going to be the Lego piece kind of clipped together part. And again, I'm kind of estimating here, maybe an 1/8 of an inch might work. That's probably good enough. That'll fit into the other piece. All right, and again, we're adding here. We should all be one piece right now because we're going to 3D print this. And that's looking pretty good so far. So now let's hide our sketch there so it's kind of out of the way. And now let's start rounding off some corners. So this fillet tool is going to be really nice. I think it would be nice to kind of round off those inside corners. If you are getting an error where it's turning red like that, a lot of times you can fix that by changing the value in here and making it smaller. And now that it's smaller, basically you're trying to put too big of a circle in there. It wasn't going to work. And that looks pretty good. It's rounding off that corner. Yeah, that looks good. I like that. Spinning it around and look at the front side. A lot of times the fillet or the radius on this is not the same on all edges. Maybe the bottom one I think is a little bit more rounded because it's kind of like the belly of a little fish. So let's click on just that edge. Maybe I want that one to be pretty big like that. And that's pretty good. Or maybe I can go 0.25 is the biggest I can go because that goes all the way to the bottom edge there. That looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. If you want to try making one that's not a circular curve there, you can try this out and play with those a little bit if you're feeling curious. You can play with those. And if you like, you could also try out the chamfer tool, which puts let's put a smaller number on there. See, instead of putting a round over, it puts a little edge on there, like a 45-degree angle. I don't really like the look of that, so I'm going to go back and say cancel that and go back to the fillet tool. Click on that edge. Again, I'm making this stuff up, so feel free to try some other numbers in there. That was a little bit too big. Let's say 0.05. That's looking pretty good. You're going to have to just play around with those numbers and see what works for you. And, for my lure here, I think that looks pretty good. If you wanted to add some details in here, like an eyeball, you could totally say, hey, I want to put some eyeballs on here. I don't know, something like that maybe. And start a new sketch on there if you want. And you can extrude that. Maybe do a remove. Remove 0.01. It's really up to you. If you want to put some gills and other designs in there, you're welcome to. I just play around with that. Have some fun. We're not going to go in depth on that. You can figure that out. But we're coming back here to this part here now. This part is where we're going to put the grooves and stuff in here. So first, you want to kind of look at this and decide where you want your hooks to be. I'm going to kind of go off of this idea here where we have 2 hooks on the bottom, and I'm going to put this piece kind of closer to the nose here, something more like this. But, look at your lure, figure out what's going to work for you. And so what I'm going to say, let's start a new sketch just so it doesn't get too confusing with that old one we have. And we're going to say start that sketch on that surface right there. And we're going to trace this shape here so I can get everything there. I want these circles aren't quite in there yet. That looks pretty good. And now let's just hide that piece so it's easier to look at here. Now I want a notch that's coming out this way towards the front of the lure. And I'm going to draw another line like so. And it'd be nice if these two lines are parallel. So I'm going to force those to be parallel right there. We go. So now it's parallel. And I want another kind of hook that will attach here on the bottom. So we're going to go line, line. Let's force these to be parallel also. And I want one more to be coming out the back here. Maybe like so. Maybe like so. And, oops, did I force these to be parallel? Yeah, parallel. Let's put a dimension all these so they're kind of a nice size. What I would suggest is actually measure a piece of wire. If you have a piece of wire, whatever you're going to put in there, I would probably suggest like stainless steel wire. I don't have any of that for you, but if you go to a fishing shop, I'm sure you can find some. And you need two wires going through this, right? So there's the wire coming out and then the wire coming back as you make your loop. So whatever it is, double that number. So if it's like 0.1, your measurement should be 0.2, right? So just make this probably a pretty small number. I'm going to say like 0.05 maybe. And let's make those all, 0.05 might be a little large, 0.03 maybe. Whatever's going to work for you. Maybe 0.04, I really don't know. For some reason, I didn't like that. One is not liking me right now. This happens sometimes. Let's see. A little smaller. No, this one's and you're going to have to play around with these numbers. Again, I am not a fisherman, so I cannot give you any guidance on what's going to work well there. The last thing we're going to do is come and find offset here because we want to offset around this hole so we have some space for the wire to kind of wrap around the peg here. What do we want? That's pretty good, probably something like this. Oh, we can't do both of them at once, so we're going to say, no, cancel that one. And say, okay, push enter. That looks good for now. I'm going to repeat on the other one. All right. I'm going to delete that constraint and just say, hey, make that one the same as that one and make those equal. Now, if I want to change this, I can say both of them should change. And let's do 0.05. That sounds pretty good. Good. All right. And all right. One more thing here. Let's come in and trim out these lines here. That just looks a little messy there, so we're going to get rid of that. All right. Now we have that. Let's bring that part back to life there. And we are going to now extrude these pieces we just got there. And we're going to do a remove. And we're going to say this is going to be something pretty small, 0.05 maybe. Let's do a little smaller, 0.04. And you can see how big that groove is. Maybe I want that even smaller. It's really up to you. Remember, we're going to double that. And that looks pretty good. That's got some space for our wire to wrap around the peg there. And let's put some fillets on there because that's going to make it look nicer in there. You can put these rounded fillets on anything you want, really. Let's say 0.015 maybe. That looks pretty good. That looks pretty nice when I round those corners off in there, right? And going in there, and there, and there, and there. Getting all those little spots there. Nice, nice, nice. All right, we're going to say okay. All right, we are getting close here. So let's go ahead and mirror this now. So we're going to say mirror. We're in 3D mode right now, so we're going to mirror this. Entities to mirror. That's what we want to mirror. The mirror plane is the middle, right? That's going to be this surface right here. That's going to be the middle. And look at that. We got a second piece showing up there. And we want this to be a new piece. So we'll say okay now. And let's make this a different color so it's a little easier to see here. We'll have maybe orange. All right. The last thing here is we'll notice that that has pegs and that has pegs. So right now they're actually overlapping. We want one of them to kind of have the hole instead of the peg there. And so what we're going to do is push this Boolean button, and we're going to say subtract. The tool, let's say this one is the tool. The target is this one, and it's going to subtract and cut a hole. It's going to use one of the tools, one of the pieces, to cut a hole in the other piece so they fit really nicely. And we're going to say keep tools. We don't want this one to delete and go away. So we're going to say keep tools. And there we got it. And we're going to say OK. All right. And I lied to you. There's one more step after this that's going to really make this a lot easier to deal with. We are going to thicken. So it's a kind of a too tight of a fit sometimes when we're going on the 3D printer. So we're just going to give it a tiny bit of extra space. We're going to say thicken this edge, this bottom piece, this in there, and this in there, and the let's see if we can get this to work here. We're going to say like 0.005, some really small number like that, just a tiny bit there. That's just going to make it a little tiny bit larger, and you're going to probably put some glue in there anyway, so if it's a little bit loose, that'll be fine. We'll say OK, and now that one's just a tiny bit larger there, right? Oops, let's see. That should be a remove. I added, so it's going to be too tight. That should be a remove. Uh-oh, that's not working. Anyway, we'll have to play around with that. Ask me in class. That's not working right now for us. So we'll cancel that for now. Anyway, what I would suggest here, if you want to add any more decorations now, put some eyeballs in there, put a little smiley mouth, put some flames on there, and enjoy. That is how we are going to try out making a fishing lure. I cannot guarantee this is going to catch you any fish, but you'll have some fun making it and trying it out. Enjoy. Laters.